Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Daniel Fuller from the Plants Grow Here podcast. Daniel's just recently released his 200th episode of his podcast, and I discovered it because Peter Donninger was on there and shared it. And it is an amazing podcast to listen to if you're wanting to increase your knowledge in the horticultural world. He's got some amazing guests on there who are insanely talented in their specialized field. So he's got folks talking about fungus growing underground and talking about insects and how they're beneficial for your garden, and just a million different micro niches of the horticulture industry. So I couldn't recommend it more to listen to it. And I'm excited to get him on so that people will discover him and his podcast so that there will be more people listening to it and increasing their knowledge. And in the chat, he talks about the benefits of having all of the different umbrellas of the landscaping and green industry talking to each other. So whether that's nurseries, maintenance, design, construction, basically everyone communicating with each other about the way things can be done better is going to make for a better industry, and more zero down on that is going to make for better projects. So whether that's a maintenance person talking to a designer about the better way to do things, or talking to a landscaper about the better way to plant, just communicating with different industries is going to make everyone a better person at what they do. Daniel's also involved with the Australian Institute of Horticulture, and he spoke about when he was going to events for the first time, how he feels you might feel a bit awkward going for your first time, not knowing anyone. So he went with his wife, I think, to the first one, and then you start meeting people, and then the next event you go to, you're meeting those same people that you met at the last time, and then you're also meeting new people. So it just keeps building. You're making some new contacts, and that's exactly the way I do things as well. So again, that's another thing. Can't recommend enough. If there's an event on, just head out to it, see someone. If you see someone go and talk to them, and then they might be talking to someone else who you can then speak to. So he talks about a great way of increasing your connections there. So I can't recommend enough listening to Daniel's podcast, but you can start off with this one first and then give the Plants Grow Here podcast a listen. But hopefully you enjoy this chat with Daniel Fuller. Daniel, thank you for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
G'day, Joel. Thanks for having on, mate. Look, I was the sort of person where I really went from job to job after school. I started a town planning degree and realized that it was all about law, and it's not really my kind of thing. I'm much more like, I guess you call me like stereotypically ADHD. Like I really want to be creative and like explore different things. And so that wasn't really for me. I went through a few different jobs. Like I worked at a bookshop. I was a cook at a cafe. Then ended up in business to business sales. So working in like the corporate side of things. I really hated it. And a buddy of mine said, "Oh, quit that, come and work for me. Like landscaping is amazing. I'll start up a maintenance arm. You can just start out mowing." And yeah, so I quit my job, gave my 2 weeks notice, turned up at his doorstep, and he said, "Sorry, mate, forgot to call my clients and try and win some ongoing maintenance work." So he was a construction guy. So just had to scramble and found a job that was pretty exploitative, I guess. Got paid $20 per lawn by myself. I had to pay for tip fees and fuel fees out of that as well. So I didn't end up making too much money, but I learned to work pretty quickly. So yeah, I took that with me for like about 10 years in the game, and went through a few different companies. Like, you know what it's like. If you want to go traveling overseas for a couple of months, they're not going to hold your position for you. So you kind of have to get a new one. I think it's not hard to get promoted to team leader. And I kept getting promoted to team leader and asking myself, where do I want to go in my career? So the way I saw it, there were only really two options for me. It was either start my own business or become a manager of a big company. And neither one of those were really resonating with me. So I sort of thought, I don't know, me and my wife just stayed up a long time just talking about which direction can I go. And she was like, what do you like? And I was like, I really like finding secret knowledge and then bringing it back to the group. And then she was like, well, how can we do that? I was like, okay, well, podcast, looking into it. Got really obsessed with a guy called Seth Godin, who's a branding guru, if you know him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really went through his ideas, and he has this idea of creating a purple cow. Now, if you're driving down the road and you see a brown cow, you probably don't even notice it. You won't remember it. But if you see a purple cow, you'll literally stop the car, get your family out, take photos, send them to your family and your friends, and you'll really remark about it. It's remarkable. So that's what I wanted to create. I wanted to create something different. And then, yeah, so I guess the podcast was well, actually, before the podcast, I did a blog. I did like 50 blog articles, and then that turned into a podcast. And I don't know, it just kind of kept evolving. I think what my strategy is in my career is just keep my options open and then try and brand myself. And yeah, so it seems to be working. I've won an award for the podcast and with my work with TAFE students, like teaching them about career pathways with the Australian Institute of Horticulture, the Award of Excellence, which is pretty prestigious. I'm pretty happy with that. I work for a plant breeder called Osbreed now as well. I do like consulting, I'll do webinars and talk to their clients and stuff and just answer horticulture related stuff, which is really fun. I really like it. It's like, it teaches you a lot. When someone asks you what's wrong with this plant, you really have to dig deep. If you don't know the answer, you need to at least know the right questions to Google to find that answer. So like one of my favorite ones was he sent me this photo of like this jelly stuff all over this lamandra. And he's like, what is it? Is it a fungus? I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure that's water crystals. Someone has just finished the job, then dumped a bunch of water crystals on top. And it doesn't look like anything you'd ever seen before if you didn't know what it was. But yeah, so some of them are pretty challenging.
Yeah, I've come across that same thing where, like in lawn, the client was worried about what's this in the lawn, and it was just we'd spilled just it doesn't have to be many because they expand a big amount. So you spilled a couple of water
Yeah.
crystals, and they expand, yeah, and they think, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
So
So
how long were you working in maintenance for? Was that 10 years you were doing maintenance?
10 years. Yeah. Most of it was as a team leader. So in maintenance, there's usually a crew of two of you, particularly if you're doing like parks and gardens or domestic stuff and commercial stuff, which I was doing. So I did like Westfields. I was doing Fed Square for a little while. We did like the City of Melbourne run for a while, like childcare centers, libraries, stuff like that. I've done beautiful big blocks in like along the Yarra River around Brisbane, like Toorak and Kew, like some beautiful properties. Done a lot of acreages, just yeah, basically anything in maintenance you can think of, I've pretty much done it, including public stuff. So
Yeah. And did you do any studying while you were doing that?
yeah, so I studied for a diploma. That took me a while. Which I would recommend for the right person. Studying online can be really good. I think it has a bad name, and rightly so, because horticulture is something. It's not just theoretical. Like it's very, as you know, it's like you got to have your hands in the dirt. You got to really practice it. But I mean, I'd already been doing that for years, so it was a really good fit for me. It's sort of putting the theory to the practical side and realizing all the things I'd been doing wrong for the last few years, and trying to get it right.
Yeah, and if you've got a passion for it, that's going to make it a lot easier rather than if you're just doing it to tick a box. It's going to be a lot more monotonous doing it that way.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, what about you? Where did you get your passion from, Joel? Did you like were you born with that or was that something that evolved naturally or
Just evolved. I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and then a bloke I knew worked at a golf course, so he said, "Do you want to work there?" So I said, "Yep," and it was
yeah,
good money doing that, but you had to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, so that wasn't ideal.
yep.
But that made me realize I wanted to work outside because I love that part of it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, didn't get into lawn mowing, but I liked the I don't know how I found out about it. I don't know if it was because of like backyard blitz or something, but I like the idea of landscaping because there were so many different elements within landscaping, so you're not
Mm,
doing the same thing all the time. So
yeah.
then I actively wanted to get into landscaping, and I was 21, which is old to get an apprenticeship back then. It probably is a little bit now for some people as well, but to put myself in front of other people, I decided I'd study horticulture as well.
Hmm.
So I did a
Yeah.
year of it was a 2 year full time course in Cert 4. So I did 1 year of that before I got a job. But I also worked in a nursery as well. But I was hungover every single shift that I worked there. So it wasn't the greatest person to be working there, but I did learn a lot from that as well. And then,
Yeah.
but yeah, as soon as I got into landscaping, I just loved it. And then luckily the person I worked for at the start, he was more softscaping. And
Yeah.
then I realized that you can do construction as well. And then that's when I moved to the company that I then bought after a year. So, but yeah, it's an insanely massive industry. Like you can look at just landscaping and think of all the different roles within landscaping, as well as some companies only do soft landscaping,
Mm.
and then there's design and horticulture, and it blows my mind how big it is.
Well, that's exactly right. I do a talk for TAFE students, particularly TAFE New South Wales students, but also I've done it for a few other places as well, like at the New England Garden Festival. 10 amenity horticulture career pathways. And you've got like You've got the breeders who like breed the plant in the first place. You know, you don't just get a job out of uni and go straight to breeding. That's probably something that's later on, and there's a fair bit of risk with that one as well. You don't get paid on day one. Then you've got like nurseries. You've got production, wholesale, retail nurseries. You've got like the design and landscape architecture. You've got the construction crew, maintenance crew, teachers, horticulture media. Like as you say, and the cool thing about it is too, once you start in one area, you're not stuck. Like you
Mm.
can really move around, like exactly as you described, like start in a nursery and then yes, then do a bit of maintenance and then have a crack at doing your construction. And yeah, I think that's really good to try a few different things because not only do you learn what you like, you also take away the skills from that workplace and bring them to a new one. Like having that understanding of how to grow plants in a nursery setting would be really beneficial once you get into the construction side, I imagine.
Yep. And also there's a lot of people who start off in construction and then move into design. So,
Mm,
and that there's a few people I know who've done that, and I'm gradually doing it myself as well.
yeah, because you
And
know
then
how it works.
yeah, exactly. So it's yeah, like there's some designers who have only done design and their designs are amazing and the detail in them, but
Mm.
it's really good seeing people who have done construction their designs as well because there's just a little bit extra percentage there of knowing how something works together.
Mhm. I'm biased. So I always say people should work in maintenance for at least a year because you see what the gardens look like after everyone else has forgotten about them. Like the construction crew, they've forgotten about the job completely. So is the designer. 10 years later, like how's the garden performing? How does it mature? Which plants are still in from the start and which ones have been replaced? How do we prune this tree or this shrub so that it performs how we want it to, so it doesn't go over the pathway, so that we don't have to continuously hedge prune it? And I think that that's the value of horticulture too. Like there's a lot of, they call them petrol cowboys out there. And I'm one of them. Like I'll admit, like that's most of my career has just been like whippersnip, mow, blow, get maybe a spray pack out and a hedger out and a rake and then, you know, that sort of job done. But I think as I mature into horticulture, I realize actually, no, that's probably the wrong approach. There are like, we can do justice to gardens by learning how to prune properly, how to selectively prune, how to take care of plant health problems, how to treat the garden as an ecology as well, like as an ecosystem. I think
Yeah,
that's
and
really,
it also emphasizes the one of the points I always push is that yeah, can't really have construction people doing maintenance because it's such a specialized thing. So
mm,
you need to have specialized maintenance people doing your maintenance for the gardens, and
yeah.
also communicating with the construction people and designers as well because they're going to see if something doesn't work. Then there's no point in the designer continually doing that
Mm,
if it can't be maintained. I remember I spoke with Cam from Abcam Horticulture, and he told me about there was a hedge that he was pruning, and it was like there's the pool, and then there's a 400 millimeter coping, and then the hedge, and they wanted the
mm,
hedge to be 3 meters tall. So,
yeah,
which is great in theory, but how are you going to prune the top of it because you can't get a ladder in a 400 mil
yeah.
paver? So, yeah, there's just things like that that you wouldn't really think of until you know about it.
You hit the nail spot on. I've actually had to do that before too. And particularly in domestic settings, like a lot of the time it's just figure it out. And sometimes you don't feel safe on those things and you sort of want to say, well, no, it's not right. But then, you know, sometimes you just shut up and just do it, don't you?
Yeah, where you put a ladder across the pool and then a plank of timber on that, and then put a ladder on
Yeah.
top of that.
And then like a little triangle and then another plank on top of that.
And then stand on 1 foot, and then you're right. So
Yeah.
can be done.
Oh, have you ever done the extension hedgie with one hand before, waving it out, like
Yeah,
got to really stretch
that's where the
across?
battery operated ones come in handy because they're lighter. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and I've got big legs, so it's a good counterweight going the other way.
yeah. I got a big butt, so that's good.
So did you go directly out of so when you were doing the maintenance, did you then start the podcast straight after like doing the maintenance?
There's a bit of overlap. So I did the blog in the afternoons. My wife has a wedding invitation business, so I was helping her with that. That was sort of like looking like that was going to be, you know, the thing that helped us a lot, and it did. You know, we set up for a long time planning her career before we really planned mine. I sort of just fell into horticulture and made a decision to be passionate about it, rather than I think some people it sort of like falls out of heaven, like, oh, I love plants, and then they continue on with it. That wasn't really my pathway. No, that you know, it was like keep your day job kind of thing. So I sort of saw the podcast as like a stepping stone to the next thing, but you know, still staying very much dry on land while doing that rather than trying to make that leap too early. So I'm not on the tools anymore, but still I have a day job. Like I do my consulting and I do my writing. and I write for a few publications and SEO and stuff like that, just for the horticulture industry. So,
And when did you become part of the Australian Institute of Horticulture?
my mentor Karen Smith, who is the editor for the Hort Journal, so she, we sort of I did a lot of cold calling, as you know from the podcast. Met with her, really vibed with her. She was like a quite a few steps ahead of me in my own horticulture media career. So asked her to be my mentor, and she said yes. One of the biggest things that she told me was networking. So she gave me a few organizations like HMAA, the Hort Media, as well as AIH, Australian Institute of Horticulture. And yeah, and you know what it's like when you turn up for the first time at these events, you feel, oh, you're like so nervous to go and talk to people. You feel like you're by yourself, or do I bring my wife along? And then it's just me and her sitting in the corner talking. But after 3 or 4 visits, then you have your people that you know, and then you're seeing people on social media, and then suddenly you don't need any crutches anymore. It's just like you don't actually have time to talk to everyone. So that's really how it happened. And then they invited me onto the National Council in 2022, I think it was, in Melbourne. They just had a position open, and then people talk, and then they off in the corner whispering to each other and then pointing at me, come over here. Do you want to be on the National Council? What's involved with it? Just vote on important matters, plan for the industry, have your say. I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. So yeah, jumped on board, and it's been a really good networking opportunity for me.
Yeah, couldn't
Mm,
agree more. With the exact way you were describing it about doing networking is exactly
mm,
what I went through. Like I'm a pretty quiet person in those situations, but I did it to put myself out of a comfort zone to
hmm.
build those connections. And then, like you say, like I went to the MIFGS garden party, the industry night on the Thursday night, and like there'd be someone I wanted to go and talk to, so I'd start walking towards them, and then someone else would I'd meet them on the way there, so I'd stop to talk to them, and then it
Yeah.
kept happening, and then there's probably you'd speak to 50 people, and there was 50 other people I didn't get to speak to.
100%. And I'm in the habit where I just talk to my buddies. Like I got my own little group, and then actually I got chastised by a couple of the old heads in them at that same media party. Like, get out of your comfort zone, mate. Go and meet some new people. Stop talking to the same people, which is true. You
Yep.
should go. There's a balance. You got to maintain relationships, and you got to forge new ones.
Yeah. You don't want to just have it's not like speed dating. You're just talking to people for
No.
10 seconds and then moving on to the next one.
Yeah, exactly. There's
To
got to
just,
be yeah, running jokes and all that sort of stuff.
yep.
Yeah.
And the Plants Grow Here podcast. Did you have anything before that? Because when you were talking about doing a blog, you said something about another
Yeah.
podcast. So,
No, just the one podcast. So before that, Plants Grow Here was just a blog.
yep.
Did like 50 articles, basically ripped off my TAFE course and put it all online for the masses to to just learn about what I was learning about. Not that I copied anything, I in through, take it in and then put it back out again in my own language, and made my own diagrams and stuff like that with the help of a graphic designer. My wife's a graphic designer, but they were pretty technical stuff, so I got a technical graphic designer to help me with it, which was cool. Like, biology and stuff like that. Like, you
Mm.
can't really describe it unless you have diagrams, and most diagrams are not free for use. So you have to come up with them yourself. And then now I've had universities and TAFEs around the world asking for the rights to those images. So yeah, thumbs up, use them. Just give me credit, and that's all good.
Yeah, nice.
Hmm.
So when you had the idea for the podcast, how long after getting the idea to do it did you have the first episode?
So it was in COVID. So, I mean, I had the idea. I was talking with one guy who sort of was a part of it in the early days, and we decided that, he might just go his way and I might go mine. Um, I think it was so we had like an 8-week lockdown. I'd been talking about it before that. Then lockdown happened. And then I sent this email out to a bunch of landscapers asking a question for a poll for the blog. I can't remember what the poll was, something about like, would you rather hire? Oh, I can't remember. It's just some question. And then after that, I just got to talking to a few people, and I was like, all right, no, I need to use this time now to create a podcast. So I just did. I recorded like 12 episodes, and then I released them by the end of lockdown. But the editing took me a really long time for one reason, just because I was learning the software, and secondly because like the first 3 or 4 interviews I did, I had to go back and re-record my whole voice because I just hated it, and I was just like, so I don't know if you've ever done that before, but it's like having to sound natural, like you're actually in a conversation, but like you're re-recording yourself. So it's like, haha, that's funny, Sam.
Yeah, I heard you telling Karen that you did that on, I think it was your
Yeah.
200th episode or one of them that you talked to
Yeah.
her. And yeah, that'd be really hard for an entire episode. Like that would
Yeah.
take a day to do an episode, I reckon, to
Literally.
insert your question
Yeah.
over the top.
literally. And my wife, and also what made it worse was every time I get a good cut, my wife couldn't stop laughing at me. So I'd have to redo it anyway.
And that was just because you didn't like the sound of your voice, was it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was still finding like no one likes the sound of their voice. I still don't, but I think I was just like a bit excited and then sometimes a bit dull. I was still trying to find that sweet point of I think they call it bottled enthusiasm, where you're not frothing over, but you're also not subdued.
Yep. Yeah, like that's something that I notice when I listen to podcasts where the ones where the people talk have got a really great like radio voice. They're a lot easier to listen to.
Mm.
Whereas, yeah, like I'm well aware I've got a monotone voice, but it's the way it is. So
I don't
it's
know about that. You put a lot of tonality into your voice, but you've got a lot probably a deeper voice than I have.
yeah. But yeah, but the amount of people who come on and say, "Oh, I didn't know I sounded like that."
Yeah. You sound
But
different in your head, believe
yeah,
me.
yeah. And then, so how did you get those first guests?
Looked through like university registers. Then I started Googling names and saw who was doing stuff. So, like, for example, one of my, well, episode two, which was the first guest, I can't remember if she was the first interview or not, but I just searched through like RMIT like staff lists. Then I was like, okay, soil science, right? Okay. Then I searched her and she'd done an interview for some other thing somewhere, some local TV thing or something like that. I was like, all right, she's great. Put her on the list, reach out to her, and not everyone gets back to you, and some of them do. And then yeah, so and also like social media, just I didn't really go for people who'd already been on podcasts because I sort of wanted to bring mentors to people who didn't have mentors. So it's like because I didn't have a mentor at the start, and I was like, I wish I had a mentor. So how can I? How I bet a lot of people feel like that. How can I bring a mentor to people who don't have a mentor? So it was like recording people who were doing the work, but not necessarily who were like communicators, just people who were actually doing the work.
Yeah, there's some of the guests you have on are fascinating. Like, 'cause I found your podcast because you had Peter Donegan on there and he shared it. So that's when I like that's the crazy thing also about podcast in the industry. Like you'd done probably 100 and I don't know 30 or 40 episodes at that stage, and I had never heard of it.
Yeah,
And I'd done over 100 of my own. So I'm sort of
yeah.
looking in that same industry. You just don't even know.
It's the
Uh,
same with your podcast as well. Like
yeah.
I'd seen your logo around, certainly, but there's a few podcasts that I just haven't had a chance to listen to yet. And then when we were at MIFGS this year, everyone was like, have you heard Joel Barnett's podcast? I was like, I've heard of it, but I haven't heard it. And it just kept happening like 5 or 6 times. I was like, all right, I have to check it out. And it's really good. Like you take a very different route to me where you're like getting into the heads of people who, especially like business owners and stuff in the industry, and similar sort of thing where you're trying to like get that information out to the public. But I feel like yours is much more like niche than mine. Mine's a bit like broader. So
But yours is more educational though. That's what I'm excited about. Other
yeah, I'd
people
say so.
will discover your podcast from you being on here. And I've learned so much from listening to yours. Like the fellow when you're talking about the fungies, how the trees
Oh.
communicate and everything. Like I found that insanely fascinating. And even just ones about bugs and insects. Like they're not ones that I would source out to listen to, but because
Mhm.
I'm subscribed to yours, I listen to it, and yeah, you just learn something every single time.
Well, thanks, mate. You are my target audience, and what you just described is exactly what I want to achieve. So thank you. That's a huge compliment. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that because what I look for in podcasts when I listen to them is you want education and entertainment. So if
Yeah.
one can do both, awesome. But if you're getting as long as you're getting one of them, it's a
Yeah,
good
I think
episode.
mine's more educational than entertaining, I'd say.
Every
And
now and then there's a good one.
one of the complaints is it's too much. Like, and I'll wear that on the chin. Sometimes it is too much.
But as long as you're consistent though, because you don't want to,
Yeah.
do an episode full of jokes
Yeah.
with you're not learning anything because that's not why people listen to your podcast.
Yeah, I think people listen to my podcast because they just love it. That's why or because they need to learn about that subject. And hopefully as well, I think people would listen to it because they don't know what they don't know, and hopefully I can bring them those things. Like maybe you don't know about insect taxonomy and maybe you didn't know that was important. But once you learn about the different mouth shapes of the different classifications of insects, now you can start putting the piece together about like what will eat what. Is this likely to be the pest that's doing the damage that I can see, or is this likely to be the thing that's eating the thing that's creating the damage that I see?
Yeah, and like you said, you were talking about one of your, I think it was in your backyard. There was a certain uh, pest that you
Yeah.
didn't want there, but then you left it and you had grasshoppers come in and they
Yeah.
sorted it out for you. So,
Is yeah, the grasshoppers were the pest. It was the skinks that came
that's
in.
right. Yep.
Yeah, I always say my favorite method of integrated pest management is doing nothing. And I got top marks in my TAFE when I said that. I said, so there was roses, so there were aphids on a rose. And then I was like, my method is to do nothing. Watch this. And then it was parasitic wasps that lay eggs in the head of them and they'd turn into what you call mummies. So yeah, the larva would eat them out from the inside. And you're left with little mummies on them. And there are things you can do in design and construction to actually encourage these predatory insects. And that's why I say take an ecological view of the garden, because it then becomes a pest resistant garden. And that's a really good selling point.
Yeah, I reckon that'd be rarely done from
I
my end.
agree. It's not done. And I think that's because we don't have enough cross pollination between the sectors. Like enough of us aren't talking to each other, because
Yeah.
horticulturists know all this stuff. And then landscapers know all this other stuff that we don't know. So yeah, let's get a bit of that communication happening so we can learn from each other. And that's also the Australian Institute of Horticulture is really good for that, because it is like landscape architecture, landscape design, construction, nurseries, maintenance, and others as well, like TAFE and everything. So there's a lot of cross pollination there.
So how do you go when you're getting guests? Like, because that's what I hate doing the most is
Yeah.
organizing the guests. That's the worst part of doing the podcast.
For me, it's cold calling sponsors. I hate the sponsors because,
Yeah.
like the ones who contact me, I get people contact me all the time, but they're just not good enough. And the ones who I want probably don't think about social media marketing as much. They're just like everyone knows them and they're like awesome companies. And I don't know, they just have a good name in the industry. Guests, I don't know. I don't even know how I do it. I just always have like this long list of guests. At the moment, I'm probably a bit lighter on content. I've been focusing on a couple of other things lately, so I've been a bit slack with guests. So usually I'd have like 8 episodes already pre-recorded. At the moment, I've only got a couple. So yeah, like guests, social media, people who reach out to me. Sometimes someone will reach out to me and say, "Hey, I've done this, and also I know this person." And just a warning: if you say I know this person or I've worked with this person, I will actually ask them for a recommendation. So that can go either way. Sometimes people will go, "Nah, don't interview him," or sometimes people will be like, "Yeah, definitely go ahead and interview that person." So I don't know if, and then I just keep an eye out on social media. Then I have some return guests who come back. I don't mind return guests because I'm not talking about the person. I'm talking about the topic, if that makes sense. So we
Yeah.
just go on to another topic. Yeah, I don't know. Guests, they just seem to come up for me. I've never really struggled with that.
Yeah. Well, we're recording this on Friday, and your episode's coming out on Monday, so that's how much of a backlog I've
Yep.
got built up.
Yeah. No, I'm a bit like that too. I've done a couple by myself lately, and I think I'm going to continue on with that trend because I can do it in like 20 minutes and then get down like everything I wanted to say about that subject. Like I did one recently with the 12 permaculture principles for amenity gardening. And I think that was cool because like permaculture really is thought of as being like food, and rightly so. But we can still take those principles into ornamental gardening and like gardening for leisure and parks and gardens and stuff and still get some pretty great results from that too.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's increasing as well is yeah, edibles within a
Mm,
landscape design. So not just having a
mm.
corner over here for all your veggie gardens and edibles, but incorporating it into the whole
Yeah,
design. So it's just more natural.
that's integration rather than segregation. So that's a permaculture principle. So getting the things in together rather than segregating them is good for pest control. It's good for like aesthetics. It's just more enjoyable, I think, to get out there and yeah, get into the garden rather than segregating things from other areas.
And you mentioned that you work at Osbreed as well. What do you do there? Because I love some of the plants that they bring
Yeah,
out.
they got some cracking plants. Yeah, so Osbreed, for people who don't know, they're a breeder. They do a lot of Aussie natives and exotics, but I guess that their real focus, or the head breeder Todd's real focus, is like low fuss, reliable, and functional. So low fuss would be like low maintenance, like stuff that's not going to die as soon as you put it in. Like you probably know as well as I do that a lot of the plants out there look great, but they just don't perform. So functional is like they'll do what they're supposed to, or they're bred for a purpose. So like, for example, like whether it's a columnar lily pilly, really good for small spaces, or like for a hedge along a fence line or something like that. Or maybe it's like a wet feet Westringia, which Westringias really aren't known for being wet feet plants. But then here we have this Westringia that can sit in full flooding, and you can put it in the bottom of a bioswale. So that would be grey box Westringia. So what I do for them is I write articles. I've written over 200 articles for their web, which is pretty cool. I do articles for their like marketing on magazines. I write stuff for their like newsletters. I also do webinars. So like landscape architects with the Australian Institute of Landscape Architecture, like they Osprey sponsor them and we do webinars and I host them. We recently broke the AILA's record for the most attendees. I think it was over 200 landscape architects attended my talk on right plant, right place. So I just broke down that subject, like right plant, right place. Like, what does it actually mean? Because everyone knows it, but how do we put it into a framework? So I said, we need to think about it in two ways. Site parameters. So that's like, what's the microclimate like? Sunlight availability, soil type, all the rest, wind, blah, 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 salt, whatever else the site conditions are. And then also plant functions. So screening, sodicity remediation, like getting the salt out of that soil, or do you just want some pretty flowers? So a wise man once told me, get 5 functions out of every plant. That was Eric Van Swalecom, and I've heard it elsewhere as well, but when he said it, it really ran true for me. So yeah, just put that together. What are the site functions? What do you want to get out of the plant what are the site parameters and what do you want to get out of the plant with the plant function? Put those together, and then this is what you get. So it was really cool to give some case studies on what works, what doesn't. So that was cool. I also do I'm like the horticulture consultant. So for the marketing manager, Claudine, I'll like help her get the horticulture right. I'll also answer questions from growers, from landscape architects, and just people in the general public who have questions about plants. And it's specifically about our plants, but often it's just about plants. They'll be like, oh, what do I do with this Photinia? I'll be like, we have one Photinia, but it's not ours. This is what's going wrong. I
And
think this is what's going wrong.
and one thing about when I hear you talk about it, there's one particular plant, and when you mention it, I don't listen to what you're saying afterward because I'm thinking in my head, why did you say it like that? When you
Right,
talk
what's that?
about the callistemon slim, the,
Slim Calistman.
yeah,
So
the fact
yeah,
you call it slim callistemon,
so that's actually funny. So what you're talking about is like that's how I was taught in TAFE too, is you have the genus, species, then cultivar name.
yeah,
The cultivar name is like CBJ01 or something like that. Slim Calistman is actually a trademark name. So it's different when you get into plant breeders' rights. Everything's changed now.
right,
So like for example, Grevillea Robin Gordon, you have Robin Gordon afterwards in the quotation
yep.
marks. That's because Robin Gordon is actually the cultivar name. Whereas with Slim Calistman, it's like, let me just actually look at what the actual cultivar name is. So let me just look. So the species is Callistemon viminalis. The true cultivar name is CV01, and then you put PBR. So how you'd write it is Callistemon viminalis with a capital C, lowercase v in italics. Then you'd have in just regular text again, you'd have in quotation marks CV01 end quotation marks PBR for plant breeders' rights. And then slim is actually an adjective that you put at the front of that. So
Right.
it's like, yeah, so it's weird how it works. I had to relearn all this stuff again because it's different to how I was taught at TAFE.
Mm. Well,
So does
that's
that answer it?
it does. Yep, makes perfect sense. I was very confused because taught exactly the same way as what you were, and then
Yeah.
so I just assumed that slim was in the quotation marks.
Yeah. No, it's different. I've actually had some of the old heads ask me the same thing, like, why do you do it like this? And then you explain it and they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yep. So slim's not even in its name, really.
No, it's a registered I think it's a registered adjective or something like that. It gets really complex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, with your podcast, have you got any plans on how long you're going to be going for it, or the
Yeah.
style staying as it is?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't see it ending anytime soon. I mean, I'm getting too much back from it, and I think I'm helping people, so I don't really want to stop it. As for the direction could certainly change at any time. Like maybe I'll get on a co-host at some point, or who knows? I'll leave that very open. At the moment, I can't see anything changing too much. I might do some more solo episodes. I really enjoyed that solo one. I could sort of like get everything that I wanted to say down on paper rather than usually I'll use a guest to say it. It's like I know about a little bit about soil science, but I'll get it on someone who knows a bit more than me, and then I'll use what I know to try and tease it out of them. But yeah, there are some topics that I feel comfortable enough to be like, no, I've got something to offer here.
Have you done any Q&A episodes?
No, no, I need to work more on audience engagement. You do that really well.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my favorite episodes was yours. It was a shorter one. It was about biggest mistakes, and some of those mistakes are great. And I really agree with you. You said one of them was complaining about the dog having access during construction to go outside, and you said no, that's actually that is actually a problem. That's not a customer from hell. And I agree with you. You need to be thinking about stuff like that.
Yeah, that's something I found with getting older and more mature is rather than just thinking the client's always wrong, whatever they're saying, if I don't want to do it, it's wrong. You
Mm,
sort of look at things from other people's point of view. Because
completely.
I can imagine how annoying it is having someone at your house every day,
Yeah,
like upsetting your routine. Like
yeah.
you've got
Get
to,
mud everywhere.
yeah, or you've got to be up and ready earlier than you would because you've got to go out and talk to them, or just really small things like that. It's whereas when you're the constructor, you're just going doing your job like you do every day, so you don't think about it.
Mm,
But yeah, it's that you're actually in their backyard, whereas they might have they don't usually close the curtain because no one can see in their backyard, but then
mm,
you're going in there, so yeah, that's something I would have agreed with that person
mm.
initially, but then the older I get, the
As you mature,
more yeah.
bit wiser. No, I think that was good.
But yeah, but those Q&As, I was doing one a week last year, but
Mm.
then doing one a week, that's a lot of questions, so the questions kind of run out. But that was an awesome thing to do, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you get people getting really involved in it. So and again, you learn a lot too.
Well, yeah, maybe I need to do that because I enjoy the content and I also think I agree with you. It's a good way of knowing where your listeners are at to. Like, what are their problems? So
Yeah,
maybe that'd be a cool one. Maybe I could ask like, what have you struggled with this year? And then it's like, if I have the answer, I can answer it. But then, I've got a pretty good network now where I just like ask people questions. Like if it's an insect thing, I'll just send it straight to Dr. Ian, and he'll send it back. Or if it's a tree thing, I'll ask someone like Jason Summers or, yeah, just I've got so many people in my network now, which is really cool.
and did you move to Brisbane recently from Melbourne?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And so how was that compared to the
Hot.
plants?
It's colder today, but it's getting colder now. No, I mean, my wife and I are from Brisbane, and it was a family thing. Like her grandfather was on his deathbed, so we flew back, just to spend that time with him. And then we looked at her nana, and who has pulmonary fibrosis, which is like means rubbish lungs that are never going to get any better, and she could barely even walk. And we're like, how are you going to go home? She's like, oh no, I was looking after Pa for all this long. And you know what they're like, they hide it from you. You don't realize how
Yeah.
bad it is. So we were just like, nah, all right, you're not going back home. We're going to move in with you. Just upended our lives and moved in with her and helped her transition into a nursing home. But yeah, it sort of all worked out for the best. And now we live in Brighton. And yeah, so we're actually expecting a baby in October now. So it all just sort of worked out really well. Now we're back in Brisbane, and baby can spend time with grandparents, great grandparents, all the rest. So that's exciting.
Awesome. What's Brighton like compared in Brisbane compared to Brighton and Melbourne?
Yeah. Brighton in Melbourne is more established, I'd say. It's like, I don't know, there's like a lot of money there. Brighton in Brisbane, it's like people are sleeping on it. I don't know. It's like a really awesome place. I think it's up and coming. It's not any more expensive than like other suburbs around. You've got the beach there. It's just like a really nice spot. They call it, I think it's Lover's Walk or Lover's Parade or something. Just like a walk along the beach to the jetty. And I don't know, it's really nice. You've got the cliffs behind you and a few fish and chip shops, like three fish and chip shops that are like always bussing. Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. Brighton's great.
Has it been good to like get to use different plants in your gardens and working around different?
Yeah. No, I'm doing in my garden. Well, one thing is when you move states, you realize how little you know about plants. Like I know all the Melbourne plants, but now I'm here, it's like all tropical plants. It's all different. But I'm still growing Western Australian natives in my garden. So I'm growing like oh, I got a couple of lily pilly. Like these are the ones that I've put in because obviously the garden was already established. There are some bad beds that I've just ripped out and started again with. So yeah, callistemons, two lily pillies. I can't remember what the cultivars are. I'm doing like paper daisies, chrysosephalums or chrysosephalums, scavola. Which do you use scavola much?
I have a while ago, but
Yeah.
no, not that much.
You got to use it. Scavola's the best. It flowers forever. It's like unkillable. Well, it's pretty well compared to other ground covers, like particularly like something like Chrysocephalum or Chrysocephalum, like yellow buttons. Like they die pretty quickly, whereas Scavola just keeps going. Look, Shout out to Osprey. They do have like the best one. Apparently, I've never grown it, but apparently Pink Fusion Scavola is like a roadside one. Like you can't kill it. It's just like bulletproof. I want to get it. It just they didn't have it in stock when I got mine. So, but yeah, Scavola. Everyone sleeps on them. They keep flowering. Pollinators love them. Beautiful ground cover. Native. They're related to goodenias. Goodenias.
Yeah.
Yeah, great plants.
They're pretty bulletproof as well. You see them on like
Yeah. I think scavollas look better though. Sometimes the goodenias, like the foliage is a bit sparse, or like they're a bit open, which is great. And they're great plants. I don't mean to put shade on them. They're great plants. But yeah, Scavola I think is something special. I think it's a really special plant.
yeah, they don't grow as well if you put shade on them either.
No, no, not too much. So they'll take a bit. So if you can give them 6 hours of sunlight, they'll love it. Yeah.
Yep. And then are you also having making more even more contacts now that you're in Brisbane? Like, how does the AIH work? Do they
Yeah.
are they online or is it sort of in person somewhere?
Yeah. So we're a national organization. We have monthly meetings online, and then there's also like the national conference, and then they'll have like, for example, like for this year they had the Shade Smart Garden in Mifgus. So like that's where you meet people in person. But then there's also the meetings each month, which take a fair while. I think it's like a couple of hours most of the time, but yeah, they're pretty comprehensive. Like we get through a lot of stuff, and then we have like subcommittees that get together and do stuff. Like, yeah. And then, but I think in the networking events, when everyone gets together, I don't know, there's just a special vibe there. I don't think every organization has that same vibe. We've got the Future Voices Council, which Alan, the president, has put in. I think it was this year, where we have like these up and coming people who are in like a sub council underneath the national council, and yeah, they're amazing. Just the energy is really great. Like, yeah, really cool.
And is the conference always at the same place or does it move around?
No, it
Just
moves around. Last year it was in Cairns. It's always in October. This year it's going to be in Coffs Harbour. So the Link project is a really cool landscaping project. I'd recommend checking it out. So yeah, in Coffs Harbour they're going to have it at the Link. So it's like the idea behind the Link was it was an aged care facility, but like all the aged care people were like kind of in their zone, and then the rest of the public were like in another zone. And what they wanted to do was link them so that like aged care people got to be a part of the community. So really successful. They got like this beautiful big lake there with like turtles in it. And then I think this is really good horticulture or good arboriculture. A couple of the melaleucas like sunk into or like folded over into the water just because I must have been a big rain event or something. Soil was a bit soft and they just couldn't last, so they fell over into the water. And I think a lesser arborist would have pulled them out, but they've left them in there. And now all the turtles get up on them and they sun themselves. And yeah, I don't know, just made really interesting habitat. And I think that a lot of the time doing nothing is a really cool thing in horticulture.
Yeah, well, in I don't know if it's every council down here in Geelong, but in the Queenscliff council, when the Melaleucas are protected, so when they fall over, they don't die, but you have
They
to leave them.
reshoot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to leave them lying down. So
Yeah.
you could have a nice nature strip, and then the tree falls over on it,
Yeah.
and you got to
It's
leave it there.
protected.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, but
see, yeah. It gets funny, doesn't it? Because it's like, yeah, we all want to protect wildlife and stuff, but then at the same time, we don't want to cut down trees in urban areas where the space is really valuable. So then we end up going out into the suburbs and then cutting more habitat down to create new housing estates because we didn't make good use of the land that was there. But it's the eternal debate, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. It's like when people get upset about noise being made in their street from someone constructing landscaping or a house. Like, how did your house get built? Pretty sure it's the same way. So,
Yeah.
but with with the conference, how does that work? Do they do like will there be is it a 2 day thing where they'll do a walk around the link and then have the meeting, or what's the
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
that
it'll
it?
be a few days. I don't have the schedule. I don't know if they have it fully done yet. There's usually a
Yep.
subcommittee that'll be doing it. I'm not on that subcommittee. But in Cairns last year we had 2 or 3 days of like workshops and presentations. So like a lot of learning. And then you go out for lunch and you meet new people, and then you come back and listen to that person talk again. Like Peter Donegan was one of the speakers. I was one of the speakers. Just some of the greatest speakers ever. And then yeah, then we had like it was I think 2 or 3 days of like field trips. So we went to the Botanic Gardens. We went to some domestic gardens that the people in Cairns knew and had in their contacts. So we saw some of the coolest gardens you can imagine. Really innovative horticulture stuff. Like, for example, one of the things that stood out to me was the use of kangaroo paws and aloes together. And I'd never put those two together in my head, but they have a similar sort of architectural shape. And then the kangaroo paws are flowering for the warmer months, and then the aloes are flowering for the cooler months. So you have all this pollination resources going around. And at this one garden as well, it was like a suburban area, but it felt like you were just on this acreage because you had a fairly large block. It was like a double block. And then going down the hill, you had the screen. And then all you could see above the screen was just like paddocks. So he'd like blocked out all the neighbors just really perfectly. It felt like you walk outside and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm in suburbia. And then you walk back into his place and you're like, oh yeah, I'm out in the country. It was really cool. A bit of smoke and mirrors.
Mm. Yeah, it's nice when you see people who are really talented at what they do. I mean,
Yeah.
you just sort of, oh yeah, that's it. They've got it.
Yeah, they got it. Exactly. And then you learn from that too. So
Mm.
I took a lot away from that.
Yeah, that's what I've loved the most about doing landscaping is working for different designers and just learning
Mm,
so many different plants and the way they use
yeah.
them and hardscape materials. Like it's been there. There's a lot of people who like if they do design and construction, they don't work for other designers. And I just reckon they're missing
Mm.
out on so much.
I think they're missing out. I agree. Completely agree. What do you think about people who like, do you value experience in maintenance?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I
Like
reckon
you mean
everyone
in
should
terms
do it.
of like a designer who's worked in maintenance or constructed.
Both, because even construction, like there are little things you can do. Like if you've seen trees, like for example, like one of the biggest mistakes I see landscapers doing is planting too deeply. And then having been in maintenance, like I've seen what happens. So now I know don't plant too deeply because otherwise rot sets in. And then it's just a slow, long death. And then you have to dig around the stem. And then there's like always going to be a dip there. So then water's always going to pile up there. And it just causes all these problems that could have been solved by just knowing what the problem is.
Yeah, that I haven't had anyone. I haven't worked with anyone who's got a good maintenance background,
Mm,
but speaking to enough people, I certainly appreciate it,
yeah,
and just from experience as well, of going back to projects and seeing things that could have been done
yeah,
better.
yeah.
Um,
That's
but
important too. Reflecting.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but there's also it's also something I talk to people about is that the garden, like when it's built, it's not a set and forget thing. Like,
Mm,
and the same as when a design's done. Like you could design something, and you might want to pleach some trees and then plant something underneath it. So you can't do that all in one go. You got to wait for a few years
yeah.
before the trees get big enough, and then you can
Yeah.
bleach them, and then you can plant underneath.
Yeah.
Something I liked when I read Fiona Brockhoff's book because she was talking about how she plants things thicker than what it will be eventually because you don't want to plant something and think, oh, that's
Yeah.
going to look good in 10 years. You want it to look
Yeah.
good as soon as
Yeah.
possible, and then you can thin it out.
I love that. That's one of my favorite hacks. I learned that same thing from Cass Turnbull from Plant Amnesty. So anyone just YouTube search Cass Turnbull Plant Amnesty. She has this incredible YouTube playlist basically how to prune any plant. She just goes into how branches work, and then you can once you learn how that works, you can actually see how like a monstera is like a different version of a eucalypt tree. Like you can see the roots, stems, leaves, and then the reproductive parts like flowers and fruits. But just the fact that it's the same program being run slightly differently. Like there's not that much difference in between a monstera and a eucalypt tree. They
Uh-huh.
still have the stems. The vascular system might be slightly different, but if you know how to prune off a branch versus how to like non-selectively prune it, you'll get different growth habits. So if you tip prune a plant, like even just like a Westringia or a callistemon, what that means is that then axillary buds on the side of the branch underneath leaves will sort of emerge out and then become like bushier and hedgier. Whereas if you want like a natural shape, you cut it back to a branch, no larger than 1/3 of the branch you're cutting back to. So that sort of then encourages a natural shape. And if you're looking to pleach plants, well, that will affect how you do it because if you non-selectively prune, you're going to create a hedge. Whereas if you remove the whole branch back to the trunk, as long as it's small enough to do so, and the plant's young enough, you don't want to be pruning big tree branches back to the trunk. But if it's still formative pruning, that will help you actually achieve what you want to long term. I hope
Yeah.
listeners can understand that. I know that's complex.
Yeah, some will, some won't. I was
Yeah,
understanding what you were going
good.
through. So, because yeah, that's not something else I like is there's such a broad audience that listens. So there's maintenance people, there's construction
Yeah.
people, there's designers, there's people who aren't even in the industry who like
Mm.
gardening. So
Yeah.
um, yeah,
A lot
but
of TAFE students too.
yeah,
Yeah, I had a lot of TAFE students come up to me and say, "Oh, yeah, my TAFE teacher showed me this." So that was
yep,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, it's good that they're doing that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because the formal qualification's one thing, but have hearing this, and you might have heard all this information before, but hearing it multiple times from different people and different perspectives sometimes drives it home. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like you say, yeah, different perspective. So that some
Mm.
might there could be two people saying the same thing, but the
Mm.
way they deliver it
Yeah.
makes you either get it or you don't sometimes.
Yeah. And also different people can learn differently too. Like some people really learn from like hands-on practicality, and then some people just like to hear the information. Like I'm probably both. Like I'll learn from doing it, but I'll also learn from just listening to people talking about it as long as I've done it before,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah, because you
absolutely.
need
Yeah,
that tangible aspect of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who's coming up in some of your episodes that you got?
Got some more Jason Summers coming up. Going to record that. I've got yeah, I've got a few coming up. I want to interview the guy who does plant music. I don't know if you heard that one.
I heard you talk
Bit of a
about that.
deep
Yeah,
cut. Yeah, it's a deep cut. This guy's really cool. It's sort of like he challenges the way I think about plants because I think deep down I feel like there's something special underneath the fabric of like everyday existence or whatever. And then, I don't think anyone would deny that. Like reality is amazing. This guy though, he has this device. It's from the 70s. He didn't make the device. He plugs one electrode into the leaf, one into the ground. And then this plant has an electromagnetic output, just like all organisms do. We all have an electromagnetic output. It's just part of our physiological being. But this device actually translates that plant electromagnetic output into musical tones. So I guess it's like reflecting. This is a very like human-centric way of viewing it. They call it anthropomorphism. It's almost like we're getting the plant's feelings. So this guy plays music and then he'll actually influence the way the plant's electromagnetic output goes. So there's one video of him in Dogtown Studios. Just Google Cosmic Knot Dogtown Studios. I also put it at the end of one of the episodes. But he's playing music and you can hear these two plants. They have the tones, and then the whole band builds up into this like cathartic release of a solo, and the plants are building up to it with them. And then the solo ends, and then it's just so peaceful, and the plants are just like blissing out, like in the afterglow of this solo, and completely different output. And I think that is incredible. That is the closest thing to two-way communication between a human and a plant that I have ever seen.
So what do you need to Google to see it again?
Cosmic Knot, as in CosmickKnot, then Dogtown Studios, Dogtown Studios, and just search that in YouTube. They're pretty far out group, but the music is really beautiful, like very soulful and like cleaning music. Like you feel really good after listening to it.
I'm going to search that up.
Yeah, it's cool.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Daniel.
No
Love listening to
worries.
your podcast and I've really enjoyed this. And
Thanks,
I've got
Joel.
no
Right
doubt.
back at you, mate. Yeah, love your podcast too, mate. So thank you so much for the chat. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, you may have noticed I forgot to ask Daniel who he recommends to have as a guest on the podcast. So I sent him a message and it might be fortunate that I didn't ask him during the podcast because it would have gone for an extra 45 minutes with the amount of suggestions that he's got for me. But there are some great suggestions, so we'll see how many we can get on. But his suggestions for who we should have on the podcast is Dr. Ian Smith, who's an ecologist and entomologist, and he's interviewed him. He's been on a couple of Daniel's episodes. Karen Smith, who's the editor of the Hort Journal. Gabby Stannis, she's from Tasmania, and also writes for the Hort Journal. Jason Summers, who used to be a tree manager in the Western Suburbs Council. Russell Lark, who's the head curator at the Royal Botanic Gardens of Victoria. Mark Valencia from the Self-Sufficient Me podcast, and also Tom Wall, who is from the Cosmic Knot, which is the music crew that he spoke about in the episode. So we'll see how many of them we can get on.